Hello, and welcome again to Talking Baseball with Leon Lee. Today is September 30th, 2021. My name is Steve, and tonight, Leon, it may take a little while to get through all the excellent introductions.
No, I'm so happy today because the reason we do this podcast, and I've been getting a lot of positive feedback from friends, especially in Japan and over here. I played in Japan 10 years, as you know, and a lot of friends and a lot of people are tuning into these little podcasts. We keep it as casual as possible. Don't like to get too stuck up or stiff. Just have fun and talk a little trash. And tonight, I'm really proud to have, one of my best friends in life who kind of joined at the hip here locally. And me and Eddie has been doing things together for the last 25, 30 years. And we have, again, on here, the great Eddie Cervantes. How are you doing, Eddie?
Doing well, Leon, and it's good to see you after all your oral surgery and hear you talking well again.
Yeah, made me more handsome. Our special guest on, Steve, that we have, and me and him has become acquainted over the last while. He's more of a scout, an agent, and jack of all trades out of Florida, right, Joseph?
Yes, out of Florida.
And we have a Joseph Guzman. And we just really love the idea that he's joining us tonight to share his viewpoints on the game. How are you doing, Joseph?
Good. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. And then we have our other guest that's on here regularly with us in Baltimore, Maryland, who's like a son to me and extended family. I love this guy to death. We have Stoney Briggs. How are you, Stoney?
I'm doing well, Mr. Lee. How you guys doing this evening?
I'm doing good. And I know you brought a special guest with you. I think we all aware of him, but I want you to do the introductions, and then we're going to have this guy say a few words to us as we get started, because Joseph and this young man here is going to have the stage for it. We're going to find out what these guys are talking about so we can get on them a little bit.
Okay. Well, I have with me tonight, Mr. Lee. His name is Pedro Swann from Delaware, graduate of Delaware State University, drafted by the Briggs, big leaguer, and my good friend. Welcome, Pedro.
I appreciate it. It's definitely good to be here amongst you guys. I'm all about, helping the youth, getting the game better, improving the game, and, teaching the game. So I'm here to learn and add a little input. So I'm just, like I say, appreciate you guys offering the invitation to me and having me on.
Well, this is good. It's really appreciative. And as you probably know from Stoney and I can kind of talk about it now, we had this platform set up we've been working on a number of years that's generously donating revenue from an online gaming company that's coming directly into our newly formed nonprofits, 501c3, for the purpose of getting funds into underserved communities.
Okay.
And we're kind of pinpointing some areas in the area of baseball where, we know there's a lack of African-American kids playing baseball. We want to address that along with educational programs and a lot of creating these economic balances in the underserved communities. So we're going to be talking about that later. Now that we're up and running, it's a good conversation. But right now, I just wanted to ask, start off with Joseph. We'll start off with the baby in the group. And tell us a little bit about yourself, Joseph, what you do, what is your passion in the game, and give us some ideas of who you are and what you do.
Okay, perfect. So I played baseball. In high school. I ended up going to Tennessee Wesleyan on a baseball scholarship. Then I finished up back home here in Florida at Florida Memorial University. It was also HBCU. And I found after my junior year, I had a very good year. I led the team in hitting, extra base hits, slugging, and several other categories. And I found that being at an NAIA school and HBCU did not help me. So after my junior year, I actually had a brain surgery that summer.
Oh, wow.
And so that threw me off, but it also changed my perspective going into senior year. And I was one of those guys that as a senior, I was 23 years old. So I recovered from my brain surgery from it was July 30th all the way to the end of the fall, probably November. And I came back and I was swinging, but my perspective had kind of changed at that point. And I saw that it was going to be very difficult. First of all, being an NAIA player, getting drafted is like a feat in itself nowadays. And in the past 10 years, you don't see a lot of NAIA position players get taken. So that really changed my perspective. After that point, did okay my senior year. And then I started coaching. And then I worked in the Dominican Republic with the Kansas City Royals with Jeff Deskin. And he's the cultural development guy for the Royals that gets those players acclimated. So I was able to see a lot of these Latin American players. A couple of them, I did think they wouldn't make it to the big leagues. And I was right on a couple. And then I started to realize the amount of talent that was in Latin America. My family is Dominican. My father's Dominican. He was born there. So then I realized, maybe there's something I can do to help, because the thing that people don't realize is when a kid signs in Latin America, they made it. If they make 500,000 sign, they have a house for their family. They give back to their communities, and for them, they've made it. So a lot of them don't even get off the island to get here to rookie ball. So I was always, fascinated by that, but I also understood their perspective and why after they had signed, some of them lost motivation. So at that point, I continued coaching, and I coached collegiate league in the Valley Summer League. And then I started helping players send players to agents, because I had just had good relationships with players, and then it just kind of started like that. Then one of the agencies actually recruited me to work with them. And then over the 3 years that I worked with him, I had 19 guys that were drafted or signed. And then I moved to another agency over the last year. It's called Empowerment Sports Group. That was more aligned with my vision. And my vision basically is to help those underdogs out there. So this past year, we had 3 guys taken, and all really good underdog stories. The best one probably is a kid from Key West High School, was not ranked in perfect game, was not ranked in any media outlet. He got taken in the 17th round by the Rangers. But one thing that he did have that I did hear on one of your guys' recent podcasts was that makeup. And so that's something that I'm really, really big on. And I think that's one of the most important things in the game, especially for pitchers, but even for hitters. And so helping a guy like that get drafted that's still not on any rankings or anything like that and is doing really well, is up to 93 in Arizona already. He's never hit 93 in his life. He's 6'3", 205 pounds, but the kid was a worker. So that was kind of where, my things shifted in my passion. I've always been good with helping people. So I just realized, I love baseball, so why not help these guys, get to the next level? And it's very difficult to compete against a lot of the bigger agencies. So I understand I've lost first rounders that I had for a couple of years that are going to be first rounders in the 22 draft to big agencies. And I'm okay with that, because for me, it's all learning experience. And for me to identify a kid in 8th grade and say, I really think this kid can be a top 3 rounder at that point is an accomplishment for me. So I always try to take, the positives out of situations, but really look at players, their mental makeup, how they work on the field. And actually a lot of my players that I represent, for the 22 draft, 23 draft, I actually like the fact that a lot of them don't respond right away to text messages, which means they're not attached to their phone, they're working. So that's actually
a good observation. Yeah.
That's actually something that I'm really starting to notice, and I'm seeing guys progress, and just trying to find those guys that are able to develop, to become big leaguers and have good relationships with.
But and I was going to ask Pedro this because, Pedro, I know you've had experience all the way from major leagues down to independent leagues. Eddie's played all the way through. I played 10 years in Japan, so that, Stoney played in Korea. I think we all kind of have that experience of, I think that with some of those experience, Pedro, and I want you to kind of share that with us, is that, like Joseph saying, you look at talent, you can evaluate talent, but how do you evaluate, with my coaching and scouting and doing that, sometimes you see kids' body language and how they react to failure and how guys stand up to failure. How do you, I mean, when you've been there working with all these young kids in the minor leagues, what do you look for?
As far as just, I guess attributes that would,
what's the kid is going to get to the big leagues and what kid's not going to get to the big leagues? I should clarify that a little bit more. What is it going to, beside talent?
Just the passion for the game. I mean, one is how you handle failure, where, if the kid shuts down, if he's not doing things right, or if that pushes him harder to work harder to get better. So that's the biggest thing I see, with kids. I think that separates them from, being good and being great.
Yeah. And, it's like, I think when I was coming up, we always had this thing that if you're African-American, sometimes you had to be a whole lot better. I always looked at it, you have to be a whole lot more consistent. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, you have less room for error, so you gotta, you have to make sure, if you're not where you want to be, you better hurry up and step your game up, because your time is limited than others have, especially if you're African American and a lower draft pick like I was. So I knew I was treading in thin water. So if I wasn't where I needed to be, I needed to work that much harder to get there.
Right. Now you came up with Baltimore, right?
Atlanta.
Oh, Atlanta. Okay, I'm sorry. For some reason, I had you locked in with Baltimore.
Yeah, I was drafted in '91 by Atlanta, my junior year, Delaware State, and played a total of 8 years with the Briggs organization.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. As a free agent, I signed with the Orioles, and then I ended up getting.
Okay, that's probably where I was. I had a memory of you being with Baltimore.
Okay,
because that's where Eddie started out. Now Eddie. If you look at his email address, and I brag on Eddie, you still see that email address as Silky. So Eddie was smooth, man. I'm telling you, talking about somebody who could play some shortstop and teach it.
Leon's always great for the hype, guys. You know that. You've probably heard it before. And
the older we get, Eddie, the older we get, the greater it is.
You do a great job at hyping, and I'm not going to turn that. But yeah, you know what? When Pedro was talking about 71, man, 70 or 91, that was 20 years after I signed with Baltimore. I signed in 71, and I started thinking about my age again.
But a number.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, to follow on Leon's question to you guys about, and Joseph brought up makeup, talking about character and those intangibles, how would you get an organization to recognize those important intangibles when everybody's looking like strictly at talent or the radar gun? How do you get someone to recognize how important those intangibles are to get somebody drafted?
Yeah. So for me, I'm really big on communication. So any type of information that I feel like is going to help a player, get them over that hump and separate them from the pack. I'll let scouts know, whether it's GPA in school, whether it's, I have a pitcher this year at JUCO that was, valedictorian of his high school. So I, throw that in there, and just allowing them to see how the kid works on the field as well, because that's one thing. Like as soon as I get to the field, I'm going to look at a guy. I'm checking to see, like, is he still on his phone, like texting somebody, in the dugout, or is he out there working? And we had a player this past year that came to a pre-draft workout in Lakeland, and it was funny because I got there around 9. The workout wasn't until 10, and the kid was a California kid, flew out. And I didn't, I was calling him, not getting through, and I'm like, I hope he's not, still asleep. So I look out in left field, and the kid's just like full sweat, like, red in the face, like he's just ready to go. Like, and he's like, I got here at 8 a.m. And I'm like, that's, those are the things that you want to hear. And then to end that workout, they made the 60 optional at the end of the workout. So that was odd. And of course he was like, oh, let's go. And he smoked the guys that he ran against, but it was just like seeing that demeanor and seeing that personality that he's just ready to compete and wants to go all in is something that I've learned to spot out. But if you really focus on guys, once they get into the field, I'm sure, Eddie and Leon know all about this. So I'll let them take it away, but you can see those guys that are serious about their craft. Like they're at work and they're locked in.
Hey,
Well,
Leon,
I know. Yeah, go ahead, Eddie.
well, I wanted to kind of question Joseph on something. Going back to his opening statement about what he went through and at an NAIA schools and what have you, and I'm just wondering, the way it sounded to me, and this is not a knock on you at all, Joseph, and I know we all go through our different periods and dealing with perceptions and what we think we're looking forward to or what we have going forward. You made the comment about it. It just seemed, and I could be wrong, it seemed like you had already kind of like resigned yourself to the fact that you weren't going to get that good opportunity to play pro ball because of where you had played and those things. And so I'm wondering, it just seemed to me, I'm wondering if that didn't kind of keep you, it could create the stigma where it kept you from working hard at changing that mentality. In other words, being the first guy out of a position player or whatever out of NAIE that makes it. I know we all run into roadblocks at times, but I just kind of got that feeling. But along that, do you use that in communicating with because it sounds like you're a good communicator and you get to know the kids personally, which is that's the best way you can try and figure out makeup with a young ball player, and even then they can hide stuff at times. But I'm wondering if everything you went through, does that kind of play into how you try and maybe get these kids to look beyond what maybe you experienced?
Right. So I didn't realize at the time that it was going to be a difficult task. So I was laser focused. I was a hard worker at the time. But then when I got into the position where I was helping players, I started doing research, and from 2000, probably 11 to now, the last 10 years, there have not been a lot of position players taken at the NAIA level. And what I learned from that was it was just the level of competition overall was not as high as, a University of Miami and FIU or some of the top D2s in my area. So I did work hard, but also I think getting guys to good places of development early, which I feel like I should have gone to a junior college and gotten more at bats early on in my career. So I'm kind of able to gauge that now and see, if this player is, if he's somewhat of a prospect out of high school, but it's probably not going to happen to him. Maybe it doesn't make sense for him to go to that D1 where he's going to ride the bench for 2 years. Maybe he needs to go to that JUCO, get his reps and be able to work uncontrollably, basically, because there's have no limits. But it is something that now I kind of see where guys fit, and I try to help them in whatever way I can to guide them to a place that I feel they can grow and develop, because that development happened for me late, as a junior, and I was almost 22 at that time. So it just happened for me late, and it's definitely not an excuse. It's just you realize that there's not a lot of NAIA guys taken, because the last NAIA guy taken in the first round, what I think was Bo Mills from Idaho, I think his name was, and you haven't seen one since. So he had like 38 home runs. So I learned that, afterwards. Right. So I did, but it definitely helped me with my experience. And now I know how to, put guys in certain situations to help them grow and succeed.
Exactly.
And everybody falls off of this game at different times. I mean, everybody finds their niche in the game. Heck, Stoney, I thought, you were probably miles ahead of Derek for a while. I think you were teaching him what to do. And, you were a little older and you're a veteran, and sometimes it just becomes a numbers game. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely becomes a numbers game. And like you said, and experience kicks in also. I had a little bit more experience, going to college and not coming right out of high school like Derek. So I got a little bit more experience over him and being there a couple of years before he showed up, so it's just an experience thing. But once he figured it out, after 3 years, his natural talent took over, and, we all see where it took him.
Yeah, but he had a good career at it. And then when he got out, it was sort of like, man, he was 35 years old. And he said, Pop, I'm done, man. I said, hey, you get a few more years and you get, you might have some Hall of Fame consideration. He goes, man, I'm not worried about that. I'm done. I got, he was having a family, he wanted to get on with his family. He wasn't really having fun. He's dealing with some injuries. And then here you are, you changing people's lives now. I think personally, from my standpoint, that you're standing all your experiences you had, it's more important to me now what you're doing with kids and they're developing the kids more so than having a big league career. I know everybody wants to play in the big leagues, and then the money's good right now and the image is good right now, but I remember one time I hit a home run in Japan. I was like end of my career, and I running around the bases, and I'm looking up at all these fans and I'm going, what am I doing this for? It's like, even if I hit a home run, it's just for me. I mean, who am I helping? I mean, what? I kind of lost, it just hit me, Pedro, and I probably, we probably have something in common in Eddie. It was almost like it just hit me. I said, man, I'm done. I'm running around the bases after hitting a home run. And I'm saying, what am I doing this for? It's like Derek and family became more important. And it seems to me now, when all the conversations we have, it's like you're changing people's lives. I mean, I'd buy into that way faster than you hitting a home run in Camden Yards.
Yeah, well, God doesn't make any mistakes, Mr. Lee. So we all end up in the places where He needs us to be to make the necessary adjustments that we need to make, to be able to help, each other better ourselves and the youth.
Yeah, I agree. And it's almost like getting to know Pedro Swann and his career and how, all his experiences and some of the things that we're going to be doing together, which I pray and hope for. That's going to, it's coming along right now, and building this camaraderie again, and the friendships in the past. And then we all have something in common to share. And now we could pay it forward to the kids that are coming up collectively. And that's kind of like a dream come true, where we can, I don't even look at it as giving back. I look at it as paying it forward, Absolutely. And I just think, man, it's a beautiful thing. We all have that experience in the game. We all got different things to offer, and me and Eddie, we ain't going to be swinging no more fungo bats, because every time Eddie swings something, he hurt his bat. Me too. Now I got this, I don't know if you guys can see it. I got this big old sack on my elbow now from throwing all that batting practice. So it's time for us to be thinkers and not stinkers anymore. Yeah. I like also Pedro, it's like, you guys are our guests and on this thing, and we get to talking about different things. But one of the things that's really close to my heart, and it really bugs me the most, we talk about perfect game and not being a devil's advocate against it, because kids are playing baseball as long as they're on the field playing. I was talking to kids, you put the uniform on and you morph into that guy on the field that people will pay money to come see, and it's a special thing being in that uniform. But what bothers me is they don't get a chance to really experience seeing the game and thinking the game and feeling the game and getting that experience of making their own decision, whether it works or not. Because I always say it's not about right or wrong. It's just consequences. You make a decision, but now those decisions are being made for them. So that's one of the things I like to talk about. And the things that we're gaining is to really kind of start teaching kids how to become their own best coach and not being forced, to do. What do you think, Pedro?
Absolutely. When I do my hitting instruction, I teach a kid, certain thing. And when he does it wrong, I say, do you feel what you did wrong? Don't just listen to me correct you. Did you feel it? I said,
did you feel it? Yes. Yes.
If you feel what you did, you can fix it. If you don't feel yourself pulling off, it's real hard to try and fix it. But when they say, okay, yeah, I felt my arm come off, or I felt myself come off my back leg on that right there. So me, I teach a lot of feel, and where, you can correct your swing after taking one bad swing instead of going 4 or 5 games in a row where you figure out what's going wrong. So I'm big on, letting them help themselves, in a game situation. Because I told them I can't be in your ear when you're at the game. When we're in this cage for 30 minutes or an hour, I can help you along. No, you pulled off on this one game, I'm not going to be there. So you got to realize when you make mistakes, game and real game experience, so you can make that adjustment next pitch.
Exactly.
Hey, Pedro, you know what you're talking about, hitting, working with hitting or hitters and infielders. Same thing though, either way, one of the questions you always get from the kids, I hit them a ton of ground balls in a given session. And then after they're done, they come in and they go, Coach, how did I do? And well, the first question, it's not how did I do? I turn it around on them. And Leon, we've gone through this before.
Yeah.
How do you think you did? How do you feel that you did? And that's the question that they need to answer is, and then they come up with where they think they need more work or how they felt they did. Of course, obviously, a lot of times they think they did better than what they really did, but that's okay. You just, you enlighten them to the other things that are necessary to even develop and make yourself even better than what you think you did. And even though you don't knock them down, you let them feel that they did better. And then you just go on and keep adding to what they're doing. But yeah.
And because it's the same thing, Eddie, when a hitter will come in and say, Coach, what did I do wrong? If you get in a matter of trying to explain what they did wrong, I tell them, in this game, no matter what you do in this game, if you look for something to be wrong, you're going to find it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's no perfection in this game. 30%. I hate for my doctor to be 30%. The 30% in this game getting hits gets you a $10 million contract, And so I tell kids, you get to the plate, and you see their eyes squinching and their hands are squeezing, and coaches are teaching them how I got to get a hit. I got to get a hit. And see, they don't understand the difference between tense and intense.
Right.
You get tense in the shoulders and the hands saying, I gotta get a hit. I gotta get a hit. So no matter what mechanical thoughts you give their mind, if they get in that batter's box and start thinking, I got to get a hit, they're at a disadvantage. If somebody's giving them some mechanical tool to work with in their subconscious mind, if they're thinking about their elbow, then part of their vision is looking at their elbow. They're not focusing on that pitcher who's trying to get you out, And so what I try to do is make them don't think about what you got to get a hit. Just focus on when you step in there and say, you know what, I'm going to enjoy the process. Number one, it's like the other day when I got my dental work, and I'll tell you a quick story. The guy's in there, he didn't put me under nothing. He just gave me locals, and he's bigging in there, man, pulling them teeth out, and I'm feeling it and everything. But hey, he asked me how I was doing, and I had all this stuff in my mouth, couldn't hardly talk. Yeah. And I said, man, I'm on the 4th hole at Pebble Beach right now. Because what in the world? I said, I planned when you went underneath there, when I got going, I planned on playing 18 holes at Pebble Beach, but you got done before I got to the 9th hole.
Mental makeup.
And what I'm saying is, and I was telling the kids I was working with yesterday, sometime when you get in that batter's box, you kind of put yourself in that frame of mind to say, here's a guy just throwing me batting practice. I just imagine all I'm doing, his only job is to throw the ball over the plate. If he can't throw the ball over the plate, he's absolutely useless, right? So I'm going, I don't care how hard he's throwing. I don't care what's breaking. I don't care what's sinking. I don't care what's cutting. He's got to throw the ball somewhere over the plate where I can get some good hacks at. And if I feel like I'm getting some good hacks, then the law of averages say sometime that ball's going to hit the bat. And then after that, I still don't have control over it. There's guys out there getting paid to catch it. So all I can control is whether I can get that bat through the zone and possibly hit it and hope that it falls in somewhere. And these kids nowadays, I say, you know what power is? Power ain't always hitting the ball over somebody's head like they trying to teach you now. Power sometimes is hitting the ball past people.
Yeah.
You know, hit the ball past them. They jerk a little bit, they flinch a little bit, they lose a step, they can't get a ball. And if your bat is getting through there quick enough, you make that defensive guy flinch instead of being able to read it off the bat. Right. Eddie depended on reading balls off the bat, but if you got a guy that popped it, he'd flinch a little bit, you know. And sometimes that little step would cost, you know, you get that extra 8 or 9 hits a year. And Tony Gwynn would tell me, he said, Leon, I just work to get that. I know I'm gonna get some hits. I'm trying to get that one extra hit a week. One extra hit a week. That means I get 25 extra hits instead of 25 outs. I hit 330 instead of 260. You know, awesome. So you try to simplify those things with hitters. Said, like Eddie said, what do you think, man? Come on, don't be asking me. I don't know what you did. You might have everything down perfect, but if your mind ain't right, you're still not gonna hit it.
Yeah, no, that's 100% right, man. I try to tell all my guys that, you know, one of them had a scout day yesterday. Like, oh, what do you think? You know, I'm like, you need to compete every second you're out there. You need to hustle, do everything that you do normally. Don't worry about the outcome. So yesterday he calls me after and he's like, man, you know, I listened to exactly what you said. I went 2 for 3 with a triple and I flew out deep to center. And I'm just like, see, you're not worried about getting hits because that's something we cannot control. You know,
can't control it.
You cannot control if you're gonna get a hit. But this up here, you know, you can control whether or not you're gonna compete every single pitch. And those are the guys that I look for, you know.
I always told the kids we were coaching, there's 2 things you can control: effort and attitude. Everything else is out of your control. But I was thinking, you know, hearing all you guys talk and being the kind of expert coaches you are, when you guys coach, obviously it's more conversational instead of less, you know, instructional dictation, more conversational. And to me, that seems like the kids end up having more fun. Is that what you guys find? Like Stoney, do you find that?
Yeah, because it's more like an interaction that you have with them. You know, you it's a communication thing there, that they're not afraid to come to you, you know, in a good or a bad situation. You know, you got to be able to have that bridge there that they can come across, you know, hey, I messed up here, but I'm still able to go to coach, you know, and get some good advice, you know, and not be afraid to say, hey, coach, you know, and come over. You got to be a comfortable situation for the kids.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, Leon, you know what? Now, about that, you know, the other thing about that is there are different ways to say the same thing. They may have heard a coach when they were younger, depending on how old the kid is you're working with, but they may have heard their dad or a little league coach tell them something, and it could be the right thing, but then you tell them in a different manner, and then it all comes maybe a little more clearer, not just because you said it, but because it's reinforcement.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is you are reinforcing. And a lot of times I'll tell the kids, look, whatever I'm telling you right now, you know, you've already stored it in that computer in your head. Your brain is like a computer, and you may follow those instructions tomorrow and work out, and you're going to remember what I asked you to do. And maybe you won't. Maybe it takes you getting to the next level or with another coach, and all of a sudden he says it in a manner that all of a sudden clicks, and then you go, oh yeah, I remember Coach Eddie told me that same thing. Now I get it. And so all it is it's a journey of being reinforced with information that works. The stuff that doesn't work, it may be in your brain, but if nobody else ever brings it out, now I guess you can say that stuff wasn't good information, and because it never got brought out again. And those are the kinds of things, those are the moments that kids have to go through to continually gather information and apply in their, to their own game. And if they can do that, they're going to be better off for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember having a conversation with Al Burmery. We're talking about hitting and, teaching hitting. And he asked me, he said, are you giving instructions or are you teaching the game? I mean, he didn't have to say anymore. I was like, because, you get a call, you get a table or a chair, it comes with instructions, but it's not teaching you how to do it. It's just instructions. So
it's
a fine line between giving instruction and teaching the game.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I like that.
That's a good.
They understand what it is. It's just not.
Yeah.
Hey, here's the instruction. Do this.
And see, that's the thing with me, with kids especially, and me and Steve will talk about it, Eddie will talk about it. And I told the high school coach this once, and I've repeated a few times, is that with the system way it works now, and the kids are kind of coming through. You run into some of these coaches, and I had a couple of run-ins. Kids were coming and asking me, and then the coach, who's an amateur coach, high school coach, is telling the kids if they come talk to me, they weren't going to be able to play for him. So I became like a rival, and I ran into him I told him one night, and I said, look, there's only one, when you're a high school coach, you have an impact on kids' lives. That's why I'm so preferential I'll send a player to Eddie or, to Stoney or to you, Pedro, because you guys understand, you've had the experience of playing at a level where you can understand what you have to deal with as an individual, but these guys have impact on these kids' lives in controlling how they think and feel on the baseball field. And then they yell and scream. And this guy that I ran into, name was Rich Gregory. I'm not afraid to say it because I hope he watches this podcast. And, he's one of them guys, college guy, never played, makes everybody spread out super wide. There is nothing wrong with having hitters spread out sometimes. There's a lot of hitters that hit spread. There's a lot of great hitters that hit spread. But he does it just for the sake of doing it, saying that I'm just going to make everybody hit wide so they don't stride. Young players don't know how to stride. So then that personal thing got in there. I said, he's your coach. If he wanted to hit wide, fine. I'm not going to get in the way of the coach, but I'll show you how to make it work and get into a little rhythm, kind of a rhythm and a timing factor. I'm not saying it's wrong or right. But he got upset that they were coming to me, and I said, you know what, Rich? There's only one thing worse than a high school coach that don't know. It's one that don't know he don't know. So and it's a really profound statement, and I realize it because these guys are playing guessing games with kids' careers, even the ones that could possibly be prospects. So like Eddie was saying, they got to wait until they get to another coach. And the coach, because they're in the process of, okay, yes, coach, yes, coach, yes, coach. They're doing what the coach tells them to do instead of saying, well, I see what you're saying, coach, but don't talk to me like that. You just do what I tell you to do. You see, I have a problem with that. So I just say, if I'm working with kids and whatever stuff, I don't have all the answers. What I might say might be different than what Stoney says or what Pedro says or what Eddie says. So I always include guys that say, what do you think? What do you think? It's good to have different perspective, but not one coach saying you got to do it this way.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
That's just a big thing with me. And that's why me and Stoney talk all the time, and that mental part of it, that psychological side of it, building the confidence. And that's one thing, like Larry Walker just went in the Hall of Fame. And the one thing we would always talk about, he said, I said, Larry, the only thing I ever did to you, because he gives me so much credit for everything, all I did was build a fence around you and let all the naysayers stay away. Everybody who wanted to tell you how you couldn't hit, I didn't let them get to you and let you go out there and play, because you just got to go play and find out what you can and can't do, because no perfection anyway. I don't care if you stand on your head and put a frying pan between your toes. If you hitting line drives, you're doing something right.
I had a hitting coach in rookie ball say, I don't care if you stand up and down. Yeah, you can hit the ball.
It might have been me. No.
I think
old school guy.
Yeah.
We learned the hard way, not really the hard way, but we learned by doing it and trying things and working on things and failing. And not afraid to do different things. Eddie could do stuff with the glove that nobody else could do, but he learned that stuff when he was in the Little League because nobody was telling him a perfect way to catch it.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, I think we see that a lot. I see it even in college, to be honest with you. And sometimes I don't want to send other guys to college because it's too cookie cutter.
Yeah.
And I think it just comes down to, especially the high school coaches. They're like, oh well, I've been winning this way, so even if I screw up a kid's career, my record's still going to be good. I'm still going to be the head coach.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. It's just personal goals. And I've even seen it in college where I have a 3-pitch, pitcher, and he's at whatever junior college, and the pitching coach is like, oh, you can only throw the fastball and the curveball. We don't want you throwing the changeup. And he's like, well, change up the pitch I need to work on. Oh yeah, but you'll be all right with the fastball and the curveball. And it's so they just eliminate that pitch. So now a scout goes out to watch him. They're like, well, he's a 2-pitch guy. He's going to have to be in the bullpen, and he's starting games throwing fastball, curveball. Got some guys are, sitting on curveball because they can't hit his fastball, and they're teeing off on it. I mean, if you're throwing 2 pitches instead of 3, that's a big difference as a hitter,
Yeah.
So, and we see it. I've seen it with college, and sometimes I'm like, I don't want that guy going back there because they just want everyone doing the same thing. And if they screw up some guys' careers and the ones that are already good get a little bit better, it's okay, So it does happen, and
yeah,
it's scary. It's scary. A lot
scary.
of kids get frustrated and they quit. And I've seen a lot of guys with like tremendous tools that didn't get past 2 years of college or even past high school. It's definitely sad to see. Instead of letting those guys grow and learn from their mistakes,
yes.
It's very difficult now. It's just everyone's just like, oh, the travel ball team is trying to be the world champions at 8U, and have have the most championships, and that's all that matters. It's like,
Exactly. You were getting ready to say something too there, Pedro.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought now.
Uh-oh, you must hit 50.
As a hitter, please tell the pitchers don't throw that changeup. I appreciate it. I'd rather pass on purpose. Do me a favor, so please hold that change, put it in your back pocket.
Actually, I got a question. I'll tee it up for Pedro here because his comment on the instructions kind of made me think about how that translates to almost any job these days. But because you can write a cookbook instruction doesn't really make you a good teacher. And, I always say, like, the best cooks don't even need a cookbook. So,
exactly.
If a youth comes to you, and I kind of want to go around the table on this, get all your opinion, but I'll start with Pedro. If a youth comes to you and says, I got a bad coach or a coach I don't like, I always thought, well, you can take a little piece from everybody, even if you think he's a bad coach. But how do you deal with that if a kid comes to you and talks to you about that situation?
I've experienced it where I had a coach that I didn't get along with, but I still ended up learning something from him. And I had coaches try to teach me. My first year in rookie ball, I had a coach after 2 weeks. It's my first time using wood playing pro ball. He tried to get me to take the hitch out of my swing, and I learned to hit with a hitch in my swing. So he was trying to get me to stop hitching. He had me come early every day for 3 weeks.
Oh wow!
Doing a hitch, and it wasn't working. So finally he gave up, and I just went back to the hitch. And it took me 9.5 years to get to the big leagues, but I made it to the big leagues and hit a home run in the big leagues with the hitch. So the way he was thinking was, okay, you can't hit, with the hitch. But, and that's why when I do my instruction, I don't try to take anything away where it's comfortable and natural for a kid. I just try to, build on it and, maybe add something that's going to help them do it better, than just trying to totally eliminate it. So
that's awesome.
He'd come to me, said he has a bad coach. I was like, look, just take what you can, learn as much from you can. You may learn that it doesn't work for you. That's going to help you, in your future. So don't just because you don't like him, just shut him out. He is a coach, and he has some knowledge that you can pick up and, help your game and add it to your game.
Exactly.
I
exactly. Pedro, you know what, Steve, when I have kids that have come to me and expressed that type of thing about a previous coach, usually, like Pedro says, you try and whatever they're telling you that coach taught them, even though it may be a little off kilter or whatever, may not be the perfect advice or teaching, you try and just kind of add something to it so that works. So it works, and you try and give them as much to work with to just say, you know what, that was then, and now moving on, you're just going to change. And here's the thing about that I learned a lot about kids. Kids are afraid to, especially if they're successful when they're real young. They're afraid to change. They're afraid to make adjustments because and it's natural. It's because you get out of your comfort zone when somebody tries to change you too much. And so the biggest challenge for coaches at the youth level, I believe, is getting them to feel comfortable with making adjustments and change, and understanding that change is a good thing. It's a good thing. Like Bob Dylan said in a song years ago, there's a change going to come, and we can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
You just got to be ready to make that change. And if you're ready to change and you're willing to change, you're going to be better off for it. And that's something you have to try and pass on to the kids.
Instead of eliminating my hitch, I just started a little sooner. And
there you go.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly. I had a kid named Marquise Grissom years ago.
Yeah.
Marquise.
Great.
When Marquise first came in with Montreal, he was a big strider. And everybody said, you can't hit with that big stride. I said, well, let me remember. Willie Mays hit with a big stride. Roberto Clemente hit with a big stride.
Yep.
Dave Winfield hit with a big stride. I said, the stride is not the issue. As long as you can stride and keep those hands back, as long as you're not open and flying open and those hands are staying back, you're fine. The only thing that happened with grip and then a few other guys that you run into every now and then, guys that are a little more aggressive and getting out there a little bit. The thing that you always got to watch for is whether when they start, and Pedro, you might be able to test this. You start a little earlier, but a lot of times if there's a little bit of a hitch or if there's a little jump in there or a little movement, your eyes will move.
Yep.
And we all know in every aspect of this game, rhythm and timing is keeping your eyes quiet where you could track a ball. This whole game, no matter what you're doing, whether you're catching it, reacting to it, or wherever the ball goes, is your vision becomes very, very important in this game. Your body will naturally react to what you see. The angles you take, your reaction time with a bat. So a lot of hitters, and it's been proven a lot of times, is that pitchers that are having trouble picking up release points, or they're pitchers that have a lot of deception and there's release point and their heads jerk a little bit, or they literally will lose the ball. In other words, they're hitting out of an area of predictability. They're hitting where they think the ball is. If you think about guys like Mariano Rivera, who had that one consistent little late break, he would kill those guys if their eyes moved a little bit, or they move forward and their eyes move, because now that late break, they're hitting where they think it is and not where they know it is. Where if you get hitters like Tony Gwynn and some of these guys that are real quiet with their eyes, they track that ball all the way in the hitting zone. They hit where they know the ball is and not where they think the ball is.
Right.
So a lot of times, with grip, when he was constant, it ain't nothing wrong with your move. It's just that you jerk a little bit when you do. Now, once you get in that habit, don't change who you are. Don't change your swing, but you keep your eyes quiet. Now, in batting practice, you start getting a habit, and I do that with a lot of hitters. You try to keep your eyes quiet where you can track the ball, because you can catch what you see and you can hit what you see. If you don't see it, you won't catch it and you won't hit it. That's just the nature of the game. And so when Grip learned how to quiet his eyes down, his stride kind of naturally slowed down a little bit. And I put a 2x4 with a nail sticking up out there in front of his foot sometime. I said, when your eyes are moving, you step in here, you jumping out there, you step in here. Now, if you step out there too far, you're going to get hurt. Yeah. We were just kind of making a joke of it. But when he starts slowing the ball down, he started kind of going back a little bit, slowing it down before he went. And then now he got into a good, powerful hitting position, but he still felt like he was getting after the ball. You know, your hitch, Pedro, is something that you feel, and you made an adjustment to it. It didn't say that it was a wrong move. That was your move. It's just that you created the timing mechanism with it. Absolutely. And then you made it work.
Exactly.
But when somebody come and say, you can't hit like that, bam, you're in trouble.
Yeah. I'm like, I can't. I've been doing it all my life.
That's what got you there, right? That's what got you there. Heck, I remember watching Stoney in Rancho Cucamonga and Memphis, Tennessee. I mean, he was as good a hitter as they had anywhere out there. A lot of times, like me, it was a numbers game, you know, position. They used to say I didn't have a position. I thought playing more than one position was a plus.
Yeah.
But for me, it ended up being a not plus, you know. Heck, I went to Japan. I'm third in the league in hitting. I'm sending articles to St. Louis. You know, I had one game, I hit 3 home runs. I said, I melt that article to St. Louis to show them what they got.
That's awesome.
And then after, I said, man, get over it, man. Get on with your life, man.
Right.
So what about Joseph when a kid comes to you talking about maybe he's unhappy with a particular coach?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the same thing that Pedro and Leon and Eddie and all the guys were saying. I mean, they have to take some of the good things out of it and just make the best out of situations, because, you know, if you're with that coach, you're probably gonna have to deal with him for some point. So I think just being receptive and taking some things that you feel, you know, you could work with, but also not being the guinea pig that's like, okay, yeah, I'm just going to change my whole swing today and just to make them happy. I think there has to be that fine line where they know, okay, let me not go too far here. Like, all right, maybe they're a short stride guy and the coach wants to say, hey, with a big leg kick, hey, home runs. I had a kid that had to deal with that at one point. So you got to hit for more power. And the kid, he hit like 420 in JUCO, like in Kansas somewhere. And then he went to a D1, and it was just like they wanted him to hit more power, but the kid had a tremendous year before for whatever reason, but he wasn't very receptive. So he didn't last very long in that situation. So I think you have to just be able to communicate with the coach what you think works, what you think what you're feeling, and just really try to understand what they're saying and let them understand how you feel about it. So a lot of times guys are scared and they don't want to say anything, and then they end up, you know, derailing their careers because they just go completely in one direction that it's just not who they are. So I think being cognizant of that and just having communication with the coach, even if it's difficult, I think the coach is going to respect the fact that they are trying to work on certain things, they are trying to fix certain things, but maybe there's other things that they don't feel comfortable with. So just being a man about it, right? I mean, just communicating and don't be disrespectful. Go and have a conversation. You know, don't show him up in practice. Go and have a conversation, you know, in his office or call him after, because that's another issue. Sometimes guys, they just want to, you know, say whatever they're thinking at the moment in front of everybody, and now that's a sign of disrespect. And now the coach is taking that in a different way, where if he showed up in his office and told him, look, you know, I don't feel comfortable with this or that, that's completely different.
Well, you know, coaches got, not to cut you off, you know, Joseph, but coaches got way more power than you do as a player.
Yeah,
you get along with them for a reason. Also, is that they can make calls, they can make decisions. You know, I remember one year with Montreal, I was a special assistant to the general manager, and they picked me that one spring training that, you know, every spring there's about 25 or 30 releases, right? And the coaches go in the room and they have all these names on the board, and they go name by name. And you look on that board, some of the names, you know, if any one of the coaches say, I don't know if they do it that way now, but we had it where all the coaches in the room, if anybody wanted to save a kid, then they would give him another shot. But if there was, you know, it's like being in the old gladiator arena. If everybody had thumbs down, that kid was gone. And then I had the job of being in the office. They had to come to my office, and I had to tell them that they were gone.
Wow.
And it was a tough thing to do. It was a new experience. they said, Leon, you got the job this spring. So we had 2 cuts. Now, I'll be honest with you. There was a couple of kids where it's like, don't let the door hit you. You know, you was always late. You're out at night. You're not getting your rest. You can't play. The scout that signed you should get fired. You know, some of these kids got attitudes. You go by their room at night and you could smell stuff coming out the door. It's just they did everything. They're gonna wake up one day down the line and say what they should have did. But we don't have that. We're not obligated to tell you why you're getting released. Now, some players, they're out there early. They're working their butts off. Right. It's kind of a numbers game. They're 23 years old and they're not going to make that A-ball team. I'm making phone calls for them, the independent leagues, the other all. I'm trying my best to stay that kid. I'm sitting in there crying tears with them because you're stepping on their dreams, you know. Yeah. But some of these kids, they think you owe them a living. Mm-hmm. So, you know, some of the kids like you're talking about, Joseph, you got to now evaluate the coaches telling them something. Is it the coach's fault all the time? Or the kid just simply don't want to listen to anybody? He's been told how good he is his whole life. Yeah. And he gets in the pro ball and all of a sudden, we all got there. We all went to our first camp in pro ball and everybody out there was the best player in their city. It's a level that a lot of kids, because I told Derek when he first signed Stoney, he went to rookie league. He was a first round draft pick. He was, you know, had all his talent, rookie league 2 weeks, went to the Cal League at 17 years old, did okay. You know,
yeah, he was on my team.
Yeah. And then the next year, Derek's thinking, shoot, I should be going to Double A. And I was talking to Riggleman and some of the guys in the front office, and the names are for me because they asked my opinion. I think Derek should go back to Rancho. He's 18 years old. I think he should dominate. I don't want to interfere. I'm not in the organization, but I think Derek should dominate because he ain't hit a wall yet. You remember Stoney? Derek was all nonchalant. He never want to say nothing. And then he got mad at me because he found out they called. And I said, Derek, this year you're going to hit a wall, buddy. I said, when you get through that wall, that's going to dictate what you're going to do when you get to Double A, Triple A, and the big leagues. Pop, A-ball ain't that hard. So by April, it was May 15th, if you remember. I think Tim Flannery was your manager.
Yes.
You remember?
Yes,
and I think Derek was hitting about 130, 140 with no home runs, no RBIs. And you go, dang, Pop. I said, no, well, now what you going to do? We all been there, done that.
And he was at third base.
Yeah, and he was playing third base. He was totally discombobulated, Pedro. And but I think if I remember right, you guys came to Stockton, and I think Derek hit for the cycle there. And it was something that happened. I remember it was just like a wake-up call. It's like, forget all these mechanics, forget all this stuff. Just get up there and get after it. Yeah. And then from then on, it was like, he took off. Yeah. He figured it out. It wasn't about hitting mechanics. It wasn't about nothing. It was just you deciding to raise your level and going out there and competing and not letting nobody beat you.
Yeah.
You know?
And once he decided that, it was the things that he was trying to control was out of his control.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's when he started playing good ball, because we would
There's
always
a lesson right there.
Yeah, we would always have those late night talks, in the rooms and on the road, and I can't this and I should be this. I said, but we can't make those decisions. The only thing we can do is put that uniform on and go out here and kick some butt.
See, and Pedro and Daddy, that's where me and Stoney really connected then. And from there on, it was like, and then you came over to Chicago, obviously, though we were together in Chicago too. But and Delino DeShields is god brother, and I had Delino in the minor leagues all the way up through. And Bob was like that too. He was no nonchalant till he just made up his mind. He just said, I'm going out here and playing. Because I remember we was in Wausau, Wisconsin, and in A-ball, and they was getting Bob out. And he goes, I'm just tired of embarrassing myself. And I said, hey, Bob, I'm going to tell you something. He's getting ready to go to Villanova to play basketball. He said, I could be somewhere playing above the rim right now. And you asked Bob, because I told him, I said, I said, Delano, being out here in uniform and going out there and making that great play and hitting that ball out of the ballpark and running the bases, it's all like playing above the rim. You just in a different uniform. And he went out there in Wausau, Wisconsin. This guy was getting him out. I'll never forget. He was getting him out on these backdoor curveballs. And I said, you get up there, get up on the plate. He ain't going to change. He's going to throw you that same pitch. You just jump all over it. I don't care what you do. Just get after it. I don't care if you miss it, foul it off, whatever. Just get after it. He hit that rascal over the center field fence. I mean, a mile over the center field fence. And he was like, what? I said, that's the kind of talent you are. You are a doggone superstar, man. And I'm telling you, he was making a lot of errors in the minor league. When he got to the big league, first year in the big leagues, he made 7. And after that, it was just like unbelievable. He just got after it. And that was Delano. I said, man, ain't nobody stop you if you make up your mind you don't want to be stopped. And boy, I tell you what, and he told Derek was little when he went to Rockford. We were in Rockford, and he told Derek, he said, just follow your heart, Derek. I think Derek was 10 years old 10 or 11. And he got advice from Delano, and that helped Derek. See, that's why I appreciate having a son. When you guys all had an impact on my son, it just makes a big difference in their career. That's a big deal.
Nice.
Well, Leon, I hate to do this again, but we're reaching our time limit.
No, we haven't already?
Yeah, but I can't let you guys go without going around the table one more time, Leon. So why don't you start it off and have anything else you guys want to talk about?
Well, I'll start it off as I want to say senior citizen, but Eddie's older than I am. So, but I'll start it off as with Eddie and then down through the line. But number one, in this game of baseball, as we do this talk, I love talking baseball. And Eddie will tell you periodically, me and him will get together for breakfast. And I think the last time we had breakfast a couple of weeks ago, Eddie, we set a record. We only had breakfast for 3.5 hours.
That's the shortest.
And that was one of our Pedro. That was one of our short breakfasts. and what I had enjoyed the most is like on this panel here and getting to know Joseph and yourself, Pedro. And me and Stoney go way back. Me and Steve have been great friends for a long, long time. And Eddie, we've been together since way back in the 60s. And the camaraderie you build in this game and we try to hand it off to young kids now that they're in a different situation. They're not experiencing that closeness anymore. Even in pro ball, the trades are numerous now. You don't see players playing on the same team a lot. But I think what we have to offer, and even talking about it here, is to show kids that one of the special things about being in baseball in a uniform are those camaraderies and the friendships and the relationships you build and all the experiences that you have every day that you play a game and you cross the line. And I tell kids, it's really not about whether you win or lose when you're 13 years old. The fact is you played the game, and I try to teach kids, step across that line, put yourself in a mode that you're going to go out here and inspire somebody. Don't say, I need to please people. Don't go out there. You want to fail, go out there and try to please everybody. Right. But go out there, instead of trying to please people, try to inspire people. That will get you to get to the level to where you're going out there saying, man, I can't wait to get that great play. I want that ball to my left or my right. I'm going to steal 2 bases a day. I'm going to make a great dive and catch. I'm going to strike out. I'm going to get some guys out on the mound. I'm going to get out there and play. I want to inspire somebody, because once you grow that passion for the game, nobody can ever take it away. It doesn't make a difference what level you get to. That's just my input all the time. I love this kind of talk like this, and the reason we do it. And then I get a lot of feedback, because it's not about having fun playing the game, because the game is really not fun in games. You want to make competing fun. You want to enjoy competing. It's not painful to go out there and work. Heck, my granddaughter told me, says, Papa, she said, baseball's not fun. The work should be fun. You should have fun doing the work, not just playing the game. People say work is hard. I don't want to work, but I want to have fun playing the game. No, make the work fun. And so that's kind of my input. I like to leave that message for everybody.
Well, Leon, I guess I'll follow you since I'm the oldest here by months or a year. For your information, guys, I just turned 70 on the 31st of August. So
Man, you're old.
so
Wow, it's my daughter's
mentally,
birthday.
like Stoney, you mentioned at the outset. Hey, it's just a number. It's just a number up here in the head. We're still young as we still think we could go out on the field and play it. But hey, my thing here, Joseph, you made a comment about getting that call back when a kid calls you and tells you how he's doing now that he did something he did something that you suggested and it was successful and that's the thing I'll talk about as far as coaches that are in it that are working with kids and they're trying to control the kid for their personal good. They're in the wrong business. Coaches need to develop a relationship with kids where now when you get that phone call, that's what it's all about. That's when you feel good as a coach that you did your job, because those kids are, you've got to embrace these kids and be thankful that they are learning from you so that you can get that satisfaction that you've helped this kid. And I think that's where we want to all be. I think as we move along in this process of working with kids is getting that satisfaction that it's like hitting that ball in the gap and standing at second and you get the crowd yelling, "Hey, I wasn't a home run hitter." You hit a home run, you go around the bases, you're in the dugout. Yeah, you get a little bit of cheers here, but you're in the dugout. When you're out at second after rattling the boards on a tweener, yeah, the crowd's yelling. You're just soaking it all in out there.
There you go.
But no, that's the satisfaction of working with kids. You gotta love it, and when they feel good because they've done well, because you've helped them, and then they respond by telling you that, man, thank you, coach, or whatever. That's why we're doing it. That's we're doing it because
yeah.
And Stoney, final thoughts?
Just sharing the journey with the kids is very important to me. I went through that journey with my coaches, and it's special because to this day, things that I'm relaying to the kids are things that I received from these coaches and guys that, I've met in the game who were kind enough, to take the time to sit down and have those conversations with me. Now that I can sit down and have the same conversations with some kids and also, make an impact on their life and help their career and where they're trying to get in the game of baseball today.
And Pedro, final thoughts?
My biggest thing is when I try to teach the kids when they go out there and play. I heard this early in my career, and I live by it, my whole career is, when you're going out there playing, you got to treat it like it's somebody's first time watching you play every game you play. Yes. Impression on them when you're playing, and you want to have the same body language and expression after the game, whether you went 0 for 5 or 5 for 5. So, I tell them try to keep on that even kill and play the game like it's somebody's watching, first time watching every time you play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's a great thought. That's a great thought.
And
one more thing, Steve. One more thing up before I leave is Pedro. Man, that backdrop is kicking, man. Where is that?
Give baseball instruction. I work with New York Life, so I do retirement planning. Life
oh, wow, okay.
So that's a New York Life backdrop. That's the
right. I like that.
That's the New York Life building in New York City.
Okay. I did a little New York Life selling insurance one year, way back in the off season, and back in the day, I did a little off season. A good friend of mine was a sales person for New York Life, and I did.
Wow!
He kind of broke me in and got my license to do it, but it's been years, so I haven't done it. But I was just curious. I love that backdrop.
I appreciate it.
I should have known, huh?
And I just wanted to add, thank you guys definitely for having me on. it's an honor to be around guys with as much knowledge as you all. And just going back with what all you guys said, embrace those relationships you have. I mean, I tell the guys that I represent now, like, those relationships you make in baseball are forever. Like, I have friends all over the country, in different countries, that I could literally call and say, hey, I'm going to be there. And they'll be like, all right, man, you could come stay overnight or whatnot. And I think that's a really special part. And I tell my guys, whether you're going to be a draft guy or not, we don't know yet, because I try to get these guys early on and where they have some room for growth and build a relationship and have good, character. And I'm like, I want to help your kid out someday. And I try to instill that in them. Like, it's deeper than just us, it's the people around us. It's the communities around us. I mean, your community maybe never had a guy that went to a Division I, and you're that first guy. Now you're starting something for everybody else. And so it's very important to embrace those relationships. And just like you guys having me on, like, I'm very appreciative of those things. And you got to take the positive out of every situation and just keep moving forward.
And I know we're out of time here, but before we leave, I want you guys to know, Pedro, you guys, we do this thing periodically, usually on Thursday nights, and sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't, since things come up. I like to always thank Eddie and Stoney and Ricky's usually here, but it's so loose that, when guys come, but you guys are more than welcome always. If you get thoughts in your mind and stuff, you want to share them, hey, give Stoney a call or myself, text, and jump in. We'll send you the link and jump on here and let's talk some baseball. So you guys are always welcome to jump on this one. Okay.
Thank you. Stoney has my email address, so anytime you have it, just shoot me the email and I'll be on.
I can't even tell you how much we appreciate you guys being on, Pedro. This is huge and it's fun. Steve have to keep us under a certain time because we, just the way it is, but we just love talking baseball. We can't do a me and Eddie's breakfast 3.5 hour podcast, but we seem to always try to. All right, Steve. Steve, you can wrap us up.
All right. Well, I personally want to thank our guests tonight, Mr. Stoney Briggs, Eddie Cervantes, Pedro Swann, and Mr. Joseph Guzman from Empowerment Sports Group, and of course the namesake of the show, Mr. Leon Lee. And it's truly a fact that you guys tonight embody the famous quote by Mr. Jackie Robinson, life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives. So thank you guys very much again. And I want to remind everybody of the main podcast site, which is talkingbaseballwithleonlee.podbean.com. You can also easily find us on Spotify, Google Podcast, and Amazon Music, just easily by searching Talking Baseball with Leon Lee. And we hope to talk baseball with you all again soon.